Welcome to Croxton Family Racing. I'm your host, as always, Adam Croxton, and with me, Boris Natasha. Boris?
I am very happy to be joining you in this League of Champions.
Our matches today are Smash Brothers vs. Engine Exposure, followed by Team Nissan vs. Stingrays. Then it's Marvel and DC vs. Precious Metals, and finally High Five vs. Code Red. Leading off, out of the Eastern Conference Caribbean Division, the 10-seeded Smash Brothers face the Engine Exposure, the 15-seed from the Swamp Division. With first up for the Smash Brothers being the Kirby 32 Ford.
Kirby has a clean run through the track and makes it to bucket 2 for 5 points. Smash Brothers will take an early lead 5-0 over the Engine Exposure, with Nitro Door Slammer up first for Engine Exposure.
As a consistent bucket 2 finisher, we expect him to do more of the same, and he certainly does. Clean run through, 5 points into bucket 2, tying him up 5 apiece. As one of our more highly anticipated matchups, we expect this one to go back and forth all the way to the bitter end, with the Frisk Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7 up next for Smash Brothers.
And as expected, he has clean run through, straight into bucket 2 for 5 points. It is now 10-5 Smash Brothers over Engine Exposure.
Punch and counter punch, they go back and forth with the black 70 Dodge Charger RT up next for Engine Exposure. Another consistent bucket 2 finisher, and he has a smooth launch, smooth through the loop, out the jail, and into bucket 2 for 5 points. That'll tie him up again. Now it is 10 apiece.
It reminds me of old childhood game from my country. Which one will break first, and how hard will they break? Perhaps it will be the Shadow the Hedgehog El Segundo Coupe for the Smash Brothers.
He says, no, Boris, it will not be me. 5 points in a bucket 2 for Shadow the Hedgehog. That'll take them to 15 over Engine Exposure's 10. And that'll bring up the White Drift King for Engine Exposure to try and match or beat that.
He has a smooth launch into the loop and out the jail, into bucket 2 for 5 points. Cool as cucumber. It is now tied once again, 15-15.
Right you are, Boris. And the Pikachu 1968 Mazda Cosmo Sport for Smash Brothers is going to keep this going. And he has a smooth launch through the loop, out the jail into bucket 2 for 5 points. It is now 20-15. Smash Brothers over Engine Exposure. This one is going back and forth and back and forth.
Yes, but just like rousing game of roulette, eventually something's got to give. Let's see if Black Roger Dodger 2.0 will be the one.
Charming metaphor, Boris. And he will not be the one. 5 points into bucket 2. That'll tie him up again, 20 apiece. Next one up for Smash Brothers is the Inkling 2017 Pagani Huayra Roadster.
He has not been consistent point maker, and he spills out of loop for 0 points. A DNF. First DNF of the race.
Right you are, Boris, and that'll leave the door open for the Masters of the Universe candidate for Engine Exposure to try and get some points. But he has a slow launch and doesn't even make it to the loop. 0 points for him. DNF, it is still 20-20.
It is back and forth again now with DNFs. It will be up to Yoshi Trap Manga to see if he can score points and put pressure back on other teams. But he doesn't, falling out of the loop. 0 points for DNF.
Well, he was the last one for Smash Brothers that could score points. They will end up with 20. It'll be up to the GRX 56 Fusion Busta for Engine Exposure to see if he can score any points and take them to the top. But he does not. 0 points for him, DNF. It is still 20-20. 2 more cars left for Engine Exposure to see if they can score any points. And any points will win this one for him.
The Silhouette 2 for Engine Exposure. He also gets a DNF for 0 points. It is still 20-20 with only the Green Drift King left to go.
Well, he hasn't scored any points yet. He hasn't even made it through the curve. And he doesn't again. 0 points for a DNF. It'll come down to a tie break. Let's see who turns out to be the deciding factor in this one. Take us through a walkthrough, Boris.
There are no cars in bucket 4 or bucket 3. Each team has 4 cars apiece in bucket 2. And moving back along the track, we see the 2 deciding factors there at the edge of the loop.
Thanks, Boris. Smash Brothers end up with 20, Engine Exposure with 20, and Smash Brothers will take it on the tie break. Engine Exposure is eliminated. Our next match today comes from the Southern Conference. Team Nissan, seeded 10 out of the Marsh division, versus the Stingrays, seeded 2 out of the Beach division. First up for Team Nissan is the Nissan Silvia S15.
And he has a good lead-off run for his team with 5 points into bucket 2.
Right you are, Boris. Team Nissan will take an early lead with 5 points. It'll be up to the blue 1972 Stingray convertible to either match or beat that.
He has been a consistent bucket 2 finisher, and we would expect more of the same.
And he does have a clean run into bucket 2 for 5 points. That will tie both teams up with 5 apiece.
I hope this will be another back and forth matchup. We have the red Nissan Leaf Nismo RCO2 up next for Team Nissan.
And he has a smooth launch, smooth through the loop, out the jail and into bucket 2 for 5 points, taking Team Nissan to 10. We'll see if the Stingrays can match that.
Next up for the Stingrays is the black Corvette Stingray. He has been consistent bucket 2 finisher.
Right you are there, Boris. And he has a nice smooth launch through the loop, out the jail and into bucket 2 for 5 points, staying consistent.
The race continues to go back and forth, and we are tied once again 10 apiece. Next up is the blue Nissan Leaf Nismo RCO2 from Team Nissan.
He's been a consistent scorer as well. He has a smooth launch into the loop, out the jail and into bucket 2 for 5 points. He stays consistent, and Team Nissan retakes the lead 15 to 10 over the Stingrays.
And the pressure moves back to the Stingrays, with the blue Corvette Stingray up next.
And looks like once again the Stingrays are up to the task, facing that pressure and scoring 5 points themselves. It is now tied again, 15 apiece. We'll see if Team Nissan can keep the pressure on. The Nissan Turbo Crash Car has not scored as of yet. Let's see if he can.
His car looks like he was made to be in Demolition Derby. He certainly does not score here. 0 points for DNF.
Well, our second race will be the Demolition Derby, so I look forward to seeing what he can do. Until then, we have the splattered 1972 Stingray convertible up next for the Stingrays.
And much like his counterpart, he has smooth run through track and gets 5 points in bucket 2.
That he does, Boris. And the Stingrays will take the lead for the first time this race. It is now 20 to 15 Stingrays over Team Nissan, with the light blue Nissan Patrol Custom hoping to get some back for his team.
And he has immediate failure from the launch. 0 points for DNF.
That'll keep the score 20 to 15 Stingrays over Team Nissan, with the white Corvette Stingray for the Stingrays up next.
He is only car for Stingrays that has not scored yet, and he continues tradition. 0 points.
Right you are. Stingray's still ahead 20 to 15 over Team Nissan. It'll be up to the blue Nissan Patrol Custom to score any points and get his team back into this.
And his nerves freeze up like Lake Baikal in winter. 0 points.
And that'll seal their fate in this one. Team Nissan loses to the Stingrays. Take us through the walkthrough.
No cars reach bucket 4, bucket 3. 4 Stingrays in bucket 2, and only 3 Team Nissan. The remaining cars didn't even make the loop, and there are 2 that did not even make the curve.
Thank you, Boris. As always, you reek with excitement. Team Nissan will lose this one with 15 to the Stingrays 20. Team Nissan is eliminated. Next matchup comes out of our Northern Conference. Coastal Division, Marvel and DC, seeded 16 against the Rockies Division, Precious Metals, seeded 9, with the classic TV series Batmobile for Team Marvel and DC up first.
And he has a nice clean run into bucket 2 for 5 points. Marvel and DC will take early lead in this one.
Right you are, and it'll be up to the gold Roland Solo for Precious Metals to match or beat that.
He has been a consistent bucket 2 finisher, and he has smooth launched through the loop and out the jail into bucket 2 for 5 points.
Both teams have had some consistent scorers, so it should be interesting to see who's going to pull off the extra points needed to take this one. It was not tied, 5 apiece.
That will bring up the Scarlet Witch for Marvel and DC.
And in a tragic turn of events, she falls out of the loop at the very end. 0 points DNF, and that does not bode well for her team. It is still 5 apiece, with the Gold Scorcher up next for Precious Metals.
He will have chance to take the lead from the Marvel and DC, saying you are not so super.
And he does that exactly with a 5-point bucket 2 finish, taking Precious Metals into the lead 10 to 5 over Marvel and DC. The pressure is now on Venom Subaru WRX STI for Marvel and DC to get back some points for his team.
He has not been the most reliable finisher, but he has smooth run, but slow exit out of jail, taking him only into bucket 1 for 4 points.
Right you are. Those 4 points are not enough to tie it back up. It is 9 to 10 with Marvel and DC behind by 1. Audacious for Precious Metals is up next to see if they can stack on their lead.
With a name like Audacious, you'd expect him to take the risk needed to get the points. And it does just that. 5 points in the bucket 2. It is now 15 to 9. Precious Metals are winning over Marvel and DC.
Marvel and DC is going to have to do something special with the muscle-bound Robin up next. They need to get back some points in this. But he quickly falls out of the loop and gets 0 points as well, and this one is fast, slipping away from them. Marvel and DC still with 9, Precious Metals still with 15.
Up next is the Silver El Segundo Coupe for Precious Metals to try and seal a victory.
And he will also add points to his team with a 5-point Bucket 2 finish. It is now 20-9, and Precious Metals is dominating Marvel and DC. It'll be real tough for them to come back from this one.
The green Batmobile for Marvel and DC will have to do something very special.
And he does have a smooth launch, smoothing through the loop and out the jail into Bucket 2 for 5 points. That will give them 14. I'm not sure if that was quite enough points or that was special enough to do anything to take a big enough chunk out of Precious Metals' score. We shall see with the mixed metals. Lucid Air up for Precious Metals. And he falls out of the loop for 0 points. It does leave the door open for Marvel and DC, although their remaining cars have not scored with any great consistency.
I guess we will see if 49 Merc Batgirl has something up her sleeve. But she falls out of the loop, getting marked herself. 0 points for DNF.
Right you are. It remains 14-20. Marvel and DC down by 6 to the Precious Metals, with Gold Lucid Air for Precious Metals up next.
And in a similar run to his counterpart, he also gets 0 points with the DNF falling out of the loop. It is still 14-20. Precious Metals over Marvel and DC.
That'll bring up Marvel and DC's Vision. He has not scored as of yet. And his run takes him spilling out of the loop, and he will not score again. 0 points DNF. It is still 14-20. Marvel and DC losing to Precious Metals.
And the last to go for Precious Metals is the Chrysler Thunderbolt to see if he can add to their lead. And he does not with 0 points, DNF. They will remain with 20 over Marvel and DC with 14, with still 2 cars left to go.
And one of the last 2 cars for Marvel and DC to go will be the TV series Batmobile. He has a smooth launch into the loop, but falls out for 0 points. He gets a DNF, and Marvel and DC remain with 14 to Precious Metals 20.
It would seem Precious Metals have given value-added text to Marvel and DC. Ms. Marvel has no chance. And she fails. 0 points with the DNF. This one is over.
That it is. Marvel and DC will drop to Precious Metals with only 14 to Precious Metals 20. Take us through our walkthrough.
No cars in Bucket 4 or 3. 4 for Precious Metals in Bucket 2, only 2 for Marvel and DC, 1 for Marvel and DC in Bucket 1.
And that's the end of that one. Marvel and DC with 14, Precious Metals with 20. Marvel and DC is eliminated. Last match out of the Northern Conference. The 1-seeded High Five out of the Plains Division faces off against the 9-seeded Code Red from the Tundra Division. Riveted up first for High Five.
And he has smooth run, setting the bar to beat at 6 points with a Bucket 3 finish. That will be hard mark to match.
With only 3 cars apiece, it is always special when you get a special run like that. Rip Rod for Code Red is going to have to do something special too to match that or beat it.
He does have another consistent run, taking him into Bucket 2 for 5 points. They will still leave them 1 point behind. Code Red with 5, High Five with 6.
Indeed, second car to go for High Five will be Amazoom, who has been wildly inconsistent. And he has a smooth run, but he gets launched out of the loop for 0 points. This will leave the door open for Code Red to get some points back.
This is time to not squander the chance for the maroon fast feline for Code Red.
Well, he's been a consistent Bucket 2 finisher this whole time. He has a smooth launch into the loop, but falls out of it in a shock. What a choke. 0 points DNF, and Code Red is going to be feeling that one. Still 6-5, High Five over Code Red.
And the last to go for High Five is the Buick Grand National. And he has nice smooth run all the way through to Bucket 2 for 5 points, adding insult to injury over Code Red. It is now 11-5.
And that will seal the victory for them. There's no way to get enough points to come back in this one, and the Race Bait 308 has not scored as of yet anyway. And he does not again. 0 points DNF, and that's how this one will finish. 11-5. High Five over Code Red. Take us through our walkthrough, Boris.
Affirmative. There are no cars in Bucket 4. 1 car for High Five in Bucket 3, 1 car for High Five in Bucket 2, and only 1 car for Code Red in Bucket 2. The remaining cars did not finish, and that is that.
Thanks, Boris. High Five with 11, Code Red with 5. Code Red is eliminated. Looking at our Western Conference, we see in the Western Conference Final, the Precious Metals seeded 9 will be taking on the Big Blocks seeded 29.
That is certainly a matchup that I don't think anybody predicted.
I think you're right about that, Boris. Looking over at our Eastern Conference, the Eastern Conference Final will be 1-0, seeded 6 against the Smash Brothers, seeded 10.
Over in the Southern Conference, the Team Ferrari, seed 11, will be facing the Stingrays, seeded 2 in the Southern Conference Final.
Should be a good matchup. Team Ferrari was not expected to go that far, but the Stingrays certainly were. Looking over at the Northern Conference, The one-seeded High Five will take on the five-seeded Clear winners in the Northern Conference Final. Another highly anticipated matchup there. On to the round of 8. Thanks for watching. Please, if you're not already, subscribe to our channel, like our content.
Comment on the videos and share with your friends. I am Boris and Natasha.
And I am Adam Croxton, signing off for Croxton Family Racing. Stay safe, be free.